Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about taking care of exotic cars. So I'm going to talk about my experience taking care of my McLaren 570 GT and my Maserati Ghibli S Q4. But I'll focus largely on the McLaren, as there will be a fair amount of overlap between this car and the Ghibli. Obviously there will be differences. For example, the Ghibli is outside. I have a one-car garage, so the McLaren's in here, and the McLaren's in here for the winter, and it's in here when there's bad weather. So it's not necessarily exposed to the elements really ever, unless I'm taking it for a drive, which I typically only do if the weather is like nice and it's not gonna rain or it's not gonna snow, obviously. But anyhow, here is the McLaren 570 GT. It's currently on tender, which is what it should be. So the people at McLaren told me to pretty much just keep it on tender when you're not using it, so that's what I do. Another thing you can do, and it doesn't come with the McLarens, but if you're not going to use it, you can cover it with like an indoor cover, which I do have. I don't currently have that on now, but I probably will. I think I might be taking this for a drive over the next couple days if it does warm up a little bit. But if it is sitting for like long periods, I would probably cover it, sure. So let's talk about like just keeping the exterior clean. And I want to talk about the products I like to use specifically on this car. So very, very rarely will I use water to clean this car. I will if it gets particularly dirty. And I think it is good to wash it with water occasionally. However, what I will usually do is use some kind of synthetic detailer. So I use Masterson's Car Care Detail Spray. I actually tried a lot of their products, and I actually quite like the results I get, so I continue to use them. You can get all their stuff on Amazon, which is where I buy it from, but it's super straightforward, right? You just spray it, and then you wipe it down with a microfiber towel like so. You would just wipe it down, and then you could use like the other side to, you know, just give it another pass. That's generally what I'll do when I clean the exterior. I'll use a fair bit of that all around, and then use a microfiber towel. So when I'm cleaning the windshield, the passenger window, the driver's side window, the sunroof, the tailgate, and the side mirrors, I like to use another product from Masterson's. It's Masterson's glass cleaner, and I'll use that on all the glass, and I will usually wipe that down with a waffle cut microfiber cloth. Now, when we're talking about cleaning the interior of this car, that's where it can get a little tricky, right? Because it depends largely on the spec that you have. I think if you have a largely leather interior, it's much easier to maintain, much easier to clean than if you were to go with a full Alcantara spec. Like, let's take a look at what I have here. So I have the leather seats. I have leather on the dash. I have leather on the door panels. I have leather on the center. The only thing in here that I have that is Alcantara is the steering wheel, which is a little bit easier to clean than if everything was Alcantara, right? That's actually a lie too. I guess the trim along the roof is all Alcantara as well. But that's not really like touched or it's used, so it doesn't really get dirty like the steering wheel does, or it doesn't get dirty like a seat would, for example. So cleaning the interior for me is a little more straightforward, right? Like stuff like this, I can vacuum. The floors, the carpets, all that stuff is very easy to vacuum. The leather is very, very easy to clean. So for the leather, I'll use one of two things. I will either use the Chemical Guys leather cleaner. Now, I'll use this when I just want to clean the leather, right? This isn't a conditioner, it's just a leather cleaner. So if it's a little bit dirty, I'll use it to just clean everything down. I might do that like once a week if it's getting significant use. The other product is the Chemical Guys sprayable leather, which is a cleaner slash conditioner. This I won't use as much because of the conditioner. It'll like make all the leather look a lot nicer, look a lot newer. It'll maintain a nice shine. I like to use that somewhat sparingly I might use that only if I feel like these seats are getting significant wear. So maybe like every other month. If the seats aren't in use that often, you don't have to use it as often. I've actually used that in the back seat of my Maserati Ghibli, which actually gets very little use, but it's like completely restored it, and the seats looked brand new after I applied it. Just to give an example of what I'm talking about, these seats back here were pretty worn. Now I think they actually look quite good. Keep in mind, I haven't cleaned the interior of this car that recently, and I definitely need to, but I just wanted to use this as an example. So that's it for pretty much all the leather. So what about the other components, like the carbon fiber components and whatnot? I like to use Chemical Guy's Total Interior. This I use, like, you can use this on everything. So you can even use this on like the dash here and in everywhere. You can use it on leather too. It doesn't really matter. You don't technically need to use the leather cleaner product. This works as well, but I prefer to use a dedicated leather cleaner, especially if I'm going to be applying it to something a little nicer than, you know, your average car. Now, when it comes to cleaning the steering wheel specifically, the Alcantara, this is something that gets a lot of wear, specifically this area right here, because this is where your hands will likely rest most of the time. So this gets much dirtier. So this will hold a lot more dirt than, say, the part of the wheel down here or the part of the wheel up here. Every once in a while, I would recommend you clean the Alcantara. It is a bit of a process, but something that I found works quite well is this Alcantara upholstery cleaner from Sonax. It is a pretty tedious process, but I promise it's worth it. This wheel was really worn when I bought this car, but I ended up restoring it using this product, and it felt almost brand new after like the whole process was over, and it's definitely worth it. That's a great product. I can't recommend it enough. I will probably be cleaning this again very soon. So a car like this too, it's important to note that, you know, especially like during the fall and stuff, when leaves are falling, a lot of the times you will end up with leaves and things right here in the ear intake. It's important that, you know, you clean those out of here if you can after each drive, or if you leave it outside for a little bit, you make sure you clean those out on both sides before you put the car back into storage. Another part that gets particularly dirty are these vents on the front over here. These are particularly difficult to clean. I've sprayed them before. I think the best way to get stuff out of here is with like a vacuum or some kind of pressurized ear is a good method to clean these up. I have not done that well of a job on those, but those are particularly tricky with McLarens. As far as the wheels go, now the nice thing about McLarens is these are carbon ceramic brakes, so they do not get very dirty, right? You usually don't have much brake dust on these wheels at all, which is super nice. It is such a relief, because the wheels on, for example, even the Ghibli will get absolutely filthy. They'll end up covered in brake dust after about 2 weeks, and they're a pain to clean. Here's an example of what I'm talking about too with the Maserati's wheels. They just get very, very dirty. And they get just covered in brake dust in the calipers as well. Luckily, there is a very good product for it, and it's from the same people that make the Alcantara cleaner. It's a product from Sonax called Wheel Cleaner Full Effect. You basically just spray it onto the wheels, wait a little bit, and then hose it off, and it cleans them so well. I use that on the Maserati all the time now, and it works like a dream. And as far as keeping the wheels looking nice and giving those like a nice shine, I haven't done that to these quite yet. Usually if I clean like the rims, I will go over the wheel as well, and I'll use another product from Masterson's called the Tire and Trim Shine. I'll typically apply this to like a microfiber applicator pad, and then just go over the wheels like so with it, and just kind of like rub it in. But yeah, I mean, that gives the wheels a nice clean, a nice dark, polished look, and take my word for it, they look great. That is an excellent product. All the products that I've shown, you can get them on Amazon. So every product that I use on the McLaren, I also use on the Ghibli. The biggest thing is probably the difference with how they're stored. And you know, for example, the Ghibli is a daily driver. It's more prone to being in inclement weather, so it needs to get washed more, and I'll clean it with water more often. I will still use synthetic detailer on it as well though, especially if it's not particularly dirty. If you can't actually garage both your cars, especially if they're exotics, I would recommend trying to keep them out of inclement weather. So keep them out of like the rain, keep them like, just try to avoid exposing them to the elements as much as possible. So if it has to be outside, if you cover it, that's fine. Preferably keep it indoors, because that's just something you want to do. The cars are just going to be much cleaner. The aesthetic is going to hold up much better. And I think just overall it's going to be better for them. And another thing to note is if you are storing a car for the winter, like the McLaren, make sure the tire pressure is good before it comes into the garage. Make sure you fill up the tank. I believe this has a full tank right now. I would actually recommend getting one of these. This is a portable tire pressure machine, and it works really well. So I don't have to take these anywhere to fill up the tires. I can do that right from my house, which is nice. And also, if you can, make sure you do something to protect the paint, especially on a car like a McLaren or like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Make sure you get some kind of a PPF if possible. This McLaren has complete PPF, so it has it all over the entire car, which isn't the cheapest, but it's great for peace of mind. And I would always, especially for a car like this, I would just recommend you do it. And make sure you're bringing them in for service every year, even if you don't drive them 10,000 miles a year, right? Like the McLaren, I'm not driving it 10,000 miles a year. I will still take it in for service and an oil change every year. Same goes for the Maserati. I don't even drive that 10,000 miles a year, but I still take it in every year, get the oil changed and all that good stuff. Just make sure you constantly take care of these cars, because they are really, really special, and you want to make sure they hold up. And yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.